So on a termite inspection, I want to make sure I get around all the window jambs, and garages. I want to make sure I inspect all the outer wall concrete if I can for termites. Sometimes they'll come in and hit the outer wall, and then you'll see some drop tubes on the inside. That'll let you know there's issues. You can see right here there's a moisture issue in that corner. So make sure I look around the framing of these garage doors, all the framing on the garage doors, and then along those what you would say is maybe the baseboards or whatever. You want to check that out. Make sure they haven't come in from the other side and had some drop tubes. Sometimes they'll clean off the outside exterior and they'll forget to clean the interior. Check around these wood frames in that area right there. I want to make sure I check there. I want to check all along this inside of this. Check inside of these, look for tubes going up along the edges. Make sure on the exterior I get all these little corners and cracks. Since there's any soil over the slab, like in that area there, I want to make sure that I scrape that away a little bit. Anywhere there's problems with flashing, where there's water dumping into the wall, make sure I'm checking all that out. You can see here they have a little moisture issue, but I don't see anything. It looks like termite shelter tubes or drop tubes in the area. So this is the back door area, the garage, closed garage. That you can see there's a little bit of a crack right here on the slab. It's possible for termites to come in that way, not likely, but we want to make sure we kind of inspect those areas just in case, even on the interior of the garage, if that garage is cracked away. On this same garage door, especially since there's a crack there, I want to make sure I open these door jambs, look inside these openings for termite tubes, anything along the cracks, the rubber seal, kind of glance in there, make sure this frame looks intact, no moisture issues, or rather no termite issues. Down here at the bottom, you might see some moisture issues. Make sure there's no termites intruding into that area. Checking all the window frames, checking the wood, looking for moisture that could attract termites. Also look inside these little areas too, along the framing of the windows, to see if I see any termites coming up through there, and any kind of tubes or holes in the surface. I pay special attention to areas where there's plumbing. I want to make sure that, because this is a penetration through the slab usually, and I want to make sure that this wall looks good and there are no termites coming in around that plumbing area. Just looking for any abnormalities in the baseboards, any shelter tubes. If I don't find anything downstairs, it's not likely I'll find anything upstairs. But this place did have a chimney. I want to make sure, so if I can get to the upstairs area where the chimney is, these areas always have moisture issues as they're flashed along the roof. So I want to make sure no problems upstairs where the chimney is attached. If I need to go into the attic space and look at that area, I'll do that also. But anyway, I always examine the chimney areas carefully around the grout and inside the chimney, even for termite tubes. I'll want to look in all the attic spaces and look for presence of dead termites. That is evidence of termites, is any insect part. And so I do look up there, and then I will, if I go up into that attic space, I'm gonna try to see if I can get to the chimney and determine if there's any termites over there where there could be moisture problems. Notice that on a lot of these windows, we'll get condensate. And so where you have condensate, you have water accumulation in the walls possibly. This can lead to mold growth. That's not what this wood destroying insect report covers. We do not cover mold, but I will sometimes mark that as a conducive condition. So make sure I don't seem to have any termite activity around that window frame. When I walk into an attic space, you'll see I'm upstairs. There's the attic drop down. Obviously that didn't close it behind me. there was a walk-in attic space from the upstairs. So I usually look at the tops of the water heaters and the tops of the units there for any termite activity, and then any kind of moisture issues around roof penetrations. And then we have a window over there, so I always try to examine that, make sure we don't have moisture issues that could be attracting termites. It's not a home inspection report, it's just a WDIR. I do work sometimes with an inspector, and if I notice problems, I'll tell him or he'll tell me, just to make sure we don't miss anything. We want to be very thorough. It's the right thing to do. We want to make sure that the potential buyer knows any issues that he could have with the structure. They're not always necessary to replace immediately or repair immediately, but we want people to know what they're getting into and potential issues that they're going to have with the structure. Pop question. There's an interior window in the attic, and so I look at it for presence of moisture and termites. If there's any termites, that's what goes on the report. But if you see here in the windowsill, there's a lot of dead wasps. Now, why do you think that, and even a stink bug there, why do you think these insects are accumulating around the window? Well, a lot of them overwinter in the attic spaces, and when they go to exit, they don't know that a window's closed. They just see light, so they head towards the light, the majority of the light. And they basically bounce off the glass until they starve to death. So that's why you see insects accumulating around windowsills. They're just simply trying to exit and can't figure it out. So on the outside, you want to make sure you, of course, look at your slab. Any of these areas around windows where there's obvious construction issues or possible moisture issues, you want to examine those. Examine those for termites that might be in the structure, even if there's no evidence at the slab. You're gonna look up high. Make sure you look at your soffits. Look for drop tubes. Just look at them. Around these beams, these piers or what columns. You want to look underneath them. Make sure there's nothing coming up from the ground into that column. And then this part in here on the slab. This part here, you can look at that, but that should be monolithic, but you kind of want to glance at that anyway, and because you never know what's going on. There could be a crack there or whatever. I do not inspect detached decks unless it's requested, and that requires a separate WDIR. But there's wood to ground contact, which is a big no-no for any structure. Wood to ground contact, you're gonna eventually have termite or rot issues. Inspect around all the windows. Water hits these ledges and it can seep into the structure. Also, there's a jacuzzi probably on the other side of that window. You want to check on the jacuzzi if you can. There's plumbing. There's condensate issues around these things. And sometimes it's possible for termites to actually come from this area here. If they move across this pad, they'll get into here and then go up underneath this insulated line, which should be insulated. They'll go under there and get into the structure. So you want somewhere around here, you want to look at it and make sure there's no termites going into the structure from the air conditioning unit. Same with all these other plumbing issues. You want to make sure they're not coming up this pipe, coming up the pipe down here. Look around it, make sure there's nothing coming up behind the pipes and getting into the structure. This is the water main. Always check your water mains. I usually check them at the wall. Make sure there's no termite tubes, shelter tubes going up underneath this insulation. They'll go from the ground all the way up under that insulation into the structure. Not uncommon at all. Again, I'm on the other side of my garage. You've got caulking issues, moisture penetration, and some poorly painted wood, possible moisture intrusion. So if that stays damp long enough, you can get termites can set into the structure up high. That causes some areas that are invisible to inspection, and my contract, my WDR disclaims that. So these structures need to be maintained. You need to maintain your roof, you need to maintain the paint, you don't want to have any kind of moisture issues in your structure anywhere, because that can draw termites. Sometimes the fence is directly against the structure. Make sure you inspect the gaps between that fence and the structure. If it's touching, termites will sometimes get up behind that gap and then move into the structure. This is one of those nice fake styrofoam columns, and termites love these things, and they'll get up underneath them sometimes. Do the best you can, inspect underneath them. There may be a wooden post underneath that, and so try to inspect underneath them where you can. Sometimes it's impossible, but you also want to inspect above that column for any evidence of termites. If they're in that column and you can't see it from below, maybe you'll see it from above. Also, any attic space, anything that you see outside, verify in the attic. Remember where you saw problems and verify that there's nothing in the attic space, where it's moved all the way off the wall and into the attic space. On some of the porches, there's an aggregate poured on top, and termites have come under that. You see you see that seam right there? Sometimes termites go under that aggregate. They'll come out over here somewhere, and you think, because if you look here, you can see that's a monolithic slab, but there is a piece poured on top. Crawl under and then pop out over here. If there's mortar spilled out over the slab, like right here, make sure you inspect or scratch that away. Sometimes termites come under that. That's probably not poured with a slab, so there's a small space underneath it. Make sure there's no termites sneaking up underneath that. Also, sometimes like along here, there's a crack, a corner, we call them corner cracks. They'll come up underneath that. May have to get a shovel and kind of pop out a little soil.